Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's availability. Any reporters who'd like to ask a question, please press star 1 to enter the queue. You will be limited to one question and one follow-up. With that, I will hand it over to Minister of Transportation and Infrastructure, Rob Fleming.
Good morning. I'm grateful to be joining you from the territories of the Lekwungen-speaking people, the Songhees and Esquimalt First Nations, and today I'm going to be providing an update on some of the most heavily damaged highways from the November storm events, specifically Highway 1 through the Fraser Canyon, Highway 5, the Coquihalla, Highway 8 connecting Merritt and Spence's Bridge, and I'll touch upon Highway 99 as well. I first want to begin with a discussion around the current state of emergency in British Columbia. This will expire at midnight tonight. It had remained in place while we monitored the Coquihalla after it reopened to essential traffic, which was primarily commercial vehicles. And of course, that highway was reopened to essential traffic on December 20th after tremendous efforts by our road crews and by BC's road builders. Since then, we've been able to monitor the traffic flow and the repaired highway, and it has performed very well. We have had, of course, some weather-related issues with a strong winter of heavy snow events. However, the areas where temporary repairs are in place are functioning well. We're now in a position to safely open the Coquihalla to regular vehicle traffic, and that will happen beginning tomorrow. This will be a much more convenient route for people going to and from the Lower Mainland to the interior, and it represents another significant milestone in our recovery from the devastating storms. With that, though, drivers must be aware that this is not the Coquihalla as we know it. There are some changes. Electric vehicle charging stations remain out of service due to damage from the storms, and some rest areas are closed. Some sections of the Coquihalla are two-lane traffic only with one lane in each direction, and multiple speed reductions are in place. For everyone's safety, it's imperative that all motorists obey the posted speed limits and do not pass in these sections. The drive between Hope and Merritt will take approximately 45 minutes longer than normal, so people will need to be patient and budget that into their travel time. Safety for motorists is paramount. To that end, there will continue to be increased enforcement from the RCMP and Commercial Vehicle Safety Enforcement, CVSE, on this route to ensure that drivers are being safe and that they're driving to the winter conditions. The Coquihalla, as we all know, is a steep mountainous route, and we've seen how conditions can change quickly with severe winter weather. People should only be on the highway if their vehicle have good winter tires, a full tank of gas, and they have food and water and warm winter clothes with them. As with all travel in the winter, people should check Drive BC before they leave because delays or closures can happen on short notice. I'm going to move now to Highway 99. Also tomorrow, Wednesday, we'll be removing the weight restriction on Highway 99 between Lillooet and Pemberton. This means that larger commercial vehicles will be allowed on the highway as they were before the November storms. This is going to be very helpful for truckers who need to move goods within the local area. However, because of the steep and winding terrain that is part of Highway 99, it is not a preferred corridor for heavy commercial vehicles and should only be used for local commercial traffic. Moving to Highway 1 Fraser Canyon, we've had good progress on Highway 1 through the Fraser Canyon, despite what we've encountered with high snowfall and cold temperatures over the past few weeks. Last week on Thursday, we opened a portion of Highway 1, the stretch between Kanaka Bar and just south of Lytton and Spence's Bridge. Significant work from our amazing highway crews has now been completed in that section. At Tank Hill, a temporary detour, including an at-grade rail crossing, is built where a landslide sheared off about 70 meters of the highway and damaged the railway above it. At the Nikaman Bridge, a single-lane temporary bridge is installed upstream of the existing damaged bridge, and at the Gladwin Culvert site, new culverts are installed and it is restored to 2 lanes of paved highway. Weather has been impacting work on the last remaining section through the Fraser Canyon, which is between Boothroyd and Kanaka Bar. But crews are back in there now. The avalanche danger has subsided, and at Jackass Mountain, we have a single-lane 260-foot temporary bridge being installed where a large section of the 2-lane road was completely wiped out. Because this long single-lane bridge, which is in a known avalanche zone. When this section opens, drivers will have a pilot car service here for about 4 kilometers. We are confident in the ministry that we can get that section open by the end of January. And this again will open up another route connecting the lower mainland with the interior and the north, and will further help the province with the movement of people and goods. Similar to the Coquihalla, though, when the Highway 1 does fully reopen, it will not be as it was. There will be lengthy delays with additional travel times of up to 2 hours or more, and load lengths restricted to 25 meters. This is due to continued construction activity. We will have crews when we reopen those sections. We will have sections of single alternating traffic and at grade rail crossings, so trains will be crossing while motorists wait, and we will have ongoing avalanche control. So those are the caveats of the progress on Highway 1, but it is amazing work, and we thank everybody who has been involved in that over many difficult weeks and months now. Let me move to Highway 8. I want to give an update on Highway 8, specifically between Merritt and Spence's Bridge, which of course was largely destroyed. 23 separate sites are being addressed on this stretch of Highway 8. Temporary access has either been completed or is under construction now at 10 sites, with construction set to begin at 13 more sites in the near future. Access through the 5 sites between Merritt and the west side of Shaken Indian Reserve is now open for local residents. Work is progressing well at Spence's Bridge, the Spence's Bridge end of Highway 8, with local access established over Curnew Bridge. Repairs are ongoing at Rattlesnake and 3 Mile Bridges right now. BC Hydro has restored power to residents between Merritt and Shaken on the north side, with work continuing to fully restore power throughout the area. All of this means that we expect to have temporary repairs on Highway 8 to a point where people can regain access to their homes this spring. It's important when we're talking about Highway 8 to note how important Indigenous and local leaders are in helping guide these important repairs, and we're in regular contact with local residents. The 3 Indigenous joint venture contractors are working with the maintenance contractor to complete this work on Highway 8, and First Nations cultural and archaeological monitors are working at all locations under construction. We would like to thank the local residents for their advice, for their patience, for their cooperation, and First Nations communities and leadership for their assistance with this ongoing work. We'll continue to communicate directly with people in the area, with Indigenous governments and local governments as this timeline firms up. I want to speak briefly, because I promised an update before Christmas and holiday break, about the costs of emergency repairs that the province has incurred. The work to reopen all of the damaged highways has truly been impressive, and we owe a huge debt of gratitude to the crews and staff who put in the long hours and all kinds of conditions to make that happen. We don't yet have final costs of the emergency repairs to our highway network, as one can understand, and we won't have final confirmed numbers for another couple of months, but I can say that the early estimates are in the range of $170 to $220 million. This work covers work on both the south coast and in the interior, all of the areas impacted by the series of extreme weather events. Of that figure, approximately $45 to $55 million are expenses that were incurred to reopen the Coquihalla. The estimates include all the work that were needed to reopen highways, such as repairing bridges and roadways that were washed out, removing debris, carrying out flood mitigation work, as well as having enhanced winter maintenance and traffic control systems in place and personnel. Most of the emergency repairs are being led by our road and bridge maintenance contractors, many of whom then subcontract where necessary to experienced Indigenous, local, and road builder contractors. When we do have final costs for all of the emergency work, we will, of course, update and share that with the public. I want to move briefly on to some of the thinking and strategy that's evolving on the permanent rebuilds for our damaged infrastructure. The initial planning to permanently rebuild Highways 1 and 8 and the Coquihalla is well underway. In late November, about 300 representatives from various construction and design firms attended a virtual introductory project meeting. We've since completed the assessments of those firms and have identified those that have been included on the pre-qualified list for construction work. And we will be starting the reconstruction process as soon as conditions allow this spring. And we're excited about the innovation, about the ideas The expertise that these firms can bring, we know and we have seen demonstrated in real time in recent months that British Columbia has among the most talented workers and the best road construction firms that you can find anywhere in the world, and they will be indispensable for us to rebuild permanently our infrastructure as we build it back better to where it was before the storms. The designs will incorporate construction techniques and practices and design specifications to withstand climate change and the impacts of extreme weather events like we've experienced in our province. In closing, I again want to extend my sincere thanks and appreciation to all those who've gotten us to this point, the companies involved, the trade unions, local First Nations, the engineers and suppliers. Your work has been noted and appreciated by British Columbians in every part of the region. I can't thank you enough on behalf of my ministry, on behalf of Premier Horgan and the government. I also want to take a moment to acknowledge my staff in the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure. They have been working around the clock as well for many, many weeks. Some of them didn't get much of a holiday break at all. They've gone above and beyond, and they've shown that the public service here is dedicated to serving our citizens in the best way possible. And they've been out on the highways, working with contractors, meeting with Indigenous communities and local residents, and leading and coordinating the response. And I can't thank these talented, hardworking professionals enough for the work they do, and I'm incredibly proud of what we've achieved thus far based on their hard work and understanding that we have a lot of work left to do, and we will be able to keep goods and services moving in this province, repairing our supply chains, making them strong and resilient for the future. We will be working with communities to make that, to accomplish that in the best way possible, and we acknowledge that that work continues to get us back to where we need before the storm conditions and build back better to where we've ever been as a province. And with that, thank you for tuning in for this briefing.
Thank you very much. A reminder to reporters on the line, please press *1 to enter the queue. You will be limited to one question and one follow-up. Our first question today comes from Justine Hunter, Globe and Mail.
Hi, thanks. Minister, you said that $170 to $220 million is for emergency repairs. Can you give me a sense of how much more work there needs to be done in terms of reconstruction?
Yeah, so I mentioned, thank you for the question, Justine. I mentioned that those are the emergency repairs to restore temporary access and functionality to the highest degree possible on our highways. We'll have to update those figures over the next couple of months. There are obviously some outstanding invoices and work progressing between now and the end of the fiscal year. When it comes to the permanent rebuild of some of the damaged areas, the firms that we're working with as a ministry right now are coming up with design features, and we haven't got that entirely costed yet. We will share preliminary project budgets for Highway 1, Highway 8 through the Fraser Canyon and the Coquihalla when we have those estimates completed.
Justine, do you have a follow-up?
I do, thanks. Can you give me a sense of the technical challenges? I know weather notwithstanding, just how does this work compare to, say, the Sea to Sky or Kicking Horse Canyon upgrades?
Well, you've got some pretty remote sections. You've got companies that need to work with traffic control and make sure that workplaces are safe to have the highways open and repaired at the same time. That's the goal, to be able to use our highways as we build back better and repair them. So that's always a major challenge in any construction project is how you manage that access and functionality while you repair. So it's significant. Obviously, some areas we're going to build back differently than what was there before in order to account for extreme weather events. So that means that things will be engineered significantly differently than they were previously. So we'll have those details to share as we identify solutions that we think meet the new engineering standards that we've helped develop with the industry and with some of the think tanks that are working on infrastructure resiliency in this province, in this country, and around the world.
Next question, Richard Zussman, Global News.
Minister, are you surprised by how quickly you were able to reopen this for regular traffic. I think when you were regularly briefing in November and December, there were some estimates that this may not be the case until the spring or summer. So are you surprised that this is happening so quickly?
I am very pleasantly surprised at the progress that we made. I think we had an opportunity for the entire province to express their gratitude and marvel at the work that was done on the Coquihalla to have it reopened to commercial traffic on the 20th of December. We had 300 incredible women and men working on that job around the clock to be able to do that. I think we mobilized 140 pieces of equipment. We had firms that were working with us. Let's put it this way. I think one of the things that really made the difference was the level of motivation was through the roof. People wanted to be a part of that. They wanted to show that BC could rally, just as we helped farmers and others that were affected by flooding in Abbotsford, just as we donated to the Red Cross to help people out in Merritt and Princeton. It was really the same ethos of British Columbians and Canadians, in fact, standing together to show what we could do. But yes, the technical progress and the skill and expertise that was displayed thus far in all the projects I've updated today and before we had the holiday season upon us is nothing short of incredible.
Richard, do you have a follow-up?
To what Justine was asking about, are there any estimates in terms of the additional costs for building back? Like, I think people may be surprised to see that the number you present today is a bit lower than I think people were expecting for costs. And so should we expect the rebuild to sneak into the billions of dollars in terms of costs?
Yeah, it really wouldn't be productive for me to throw out a hypothetical number right now, because there is a lot of work that needs to be done on quantifying what the rebuild looks like. What we have done, though, back in November, as I mentioned, is we worked with 300 firms and individuals who expressed interest in working on these projects to sort of be able to pre-qualify them to get working as soon as possible. Once we get a good runway of better weather as we get closer to the spring, we'll of course have a better idea of what the costs look like. But as I've said before, for us, making this a priority and putting the resources that we need to into these emergency unanticipated repairs is what we're facing as a government and what we've committed to do.
Next question, Alyssa Thibault, CTV.
Hi, Minister. Thanks for taking my question. So firstly, while Highway 5 had been closed and Highway 3 was really the only access point for a number of vehicles to get to the interior, we did see a lot of instances of crashes and avalanches and bad driving. I mean, do you want to speak to that, and do you have any message to drivers taking the Coquihalla as well?
I do, and certainly when the number 3 was the only route available to the interior other than the one that we were able to negotiate with our federal counterparts and the relevant U.S. agencies to get through northern Washington for a period of time. We sat down specifically on the number 3 with representatives of the trucking industry to identify how we can make this safer. Information was key. A lot of drivers had not been on the number 3 very, very regularly or at all and needed to learn what the conditions were like. It's an older highway built to specifications that are from a previous era, and it's difficult terrain. So I think with the enforcement, the RCMP presence, we did hand out a number of tickets for people who, for whatever reasons, weren't obeying the posted speed limits. So I think enforcement played a role in getting stronger safety compliance, working with our road maintenance contractors as well to hit the weather with de-icing and abrasives and keep it safe. That was our goal. And we certainly did everything we could to educate motorists that wanted to use it over the holiday season and when we reopened it to them. So the number 3 performed well. It was regularly inspected because we were worried about the damage it sustained. So making sure that it was functional at all times was part of that endeavor, and that's what we're doing now on the number 5 as well.
Alyssa, do you have a follow-up?
Yeah, and I guess just to leading on from that, because you mentioned there will be sections of the Coquihalla that will have reduced speed limits, and certain parts will take longer. Is there a plan of enforcement on the number 5?
Yes, you'll see similar stepped-up enforcement that you've seen on the number 3. So we're working with RCMP and our own ministry CVSE enforcement teams. It means that when chaining up is required, chaining up must occur. When speed variables are adjusted, those need to be adhered to. I mentioned earlier, absolute prohibition and restriction on any passing in the areas that have reduced lane capacity. So those are all things that we're educating drivers about, that Drive BC alerts drivers who are planning trips using the Coquihalla to be aware of. And of course, it's what we're working with the BC Trucking Association and others to constantly remind drivers of commercial vehicles to adhere to.
Next question comes from Mira Baines, CBC.
Minister, how do you respond to truckers who are worried about their lives because of the road conditions on BC highways? They're complaining about ice, snow, and potholes. There was a protest on the weekend, and another one is planned for the upcoming weekend. Can you just respond to, what do you say to those truck drivers who are trying to cross these highways who say the conditions aren't good right now?
Well, our number one priority as a ministry is to make sure that all truckers are safe. All workers in British Columbia deserve to work safely and get home to their families each and every night. And that's what we're working on the Coquihalla. That's a key part of the road maintenance agreements that we amended and significantly changed in 2019. So there are significantly higher levels of resources to make sure that winter conditions are more regularly plowed and attended to in terms of de-icing, that more equipment is available on standby, that weather forecasting plays a greater role in road maintenance strategies and deployment. Having said that, truckers are invaluable eyes on the road for us. The issue that I heard a representative of the West Coast Truckers Association talk about in terms of potholes, we want to get crews repairing that damage, because it's kind of like aftershock damage of the storm events. You've got wet conditions under the roadbed that then freezes and cracks, and we know that those repairs are really important. And we have companies and firms and supplies procured to be able to do that as quickly as possible. That's the job that we're doing, and we've certainly been working with road maintenance companies because the winter that we're experiencing right now is significant and severe. And therefore working closely with the industry is a key strategy around maintaining ongoing safety of our roads, including the Coquihalla.
Mira, do you have a follow-up?
Yeah, and we're wondering about just federal money that's going towards these repairs, and just the temporary repairs as well as the permanent repairs. Do you have sort of a framework worked out with the Minister of Transportation, the federal Minister of Transport?
So I've been in regular discussions with both the Minister of Transportation and the Minister of Infrastructure federally, and some of my counterparts in our BC cabinet are working, for example, Minister Farnworth is working with Minister Blair on public safety and emergency recovery. The Minister of Agriculture has been active with her counterpart in Ottawa. So there are many facets to what recovery looks like. Infrastructure damage in communities like Merritt and Princeton, where it involves wastewater treatment and drinking water, housing. So our discussions and the table we've created with our federal counterparts are really covering every aspect of what the recovery looks like. Specifically to my ministry, the discussions I've had with both the Minister of Infrastructure and Transportation federally around what Build Back Better looks like and what kind of flexibility we would like to see with the money they've allocated on a preliminary basis for recovery around new standards, Building Back Better, climate resilience, have been very productive and the level of engagement couldn't be any higher than what we've achieved thus far.
We have time for one more question. We'll go to Tyler Olson, Fraser Valley Current.
Hi, yeah, thank you. There's been concerns, as I think another reporter raised, about the maintenance of highways during the recent snow events. I think the ministry recently told Castanet that it doesn't track the number of complaints about road clearing. If you don't track user feedback, how do you assess if those users are being served appropriately by the contractors?
Well, we do, and we have a very strict audit and compliance regime, and contractors are motivated financially to meet and exceed them. There's bonus payments that are not received based on complaints that are investigated. So there is an investigation and an audit and compliance regime that is part of how the ministry administers road maintenance contracts in every part of the province. And the other thing too is that I mentioned some changes we made as a province, as a new government, in fact, in 2019 around much higher standards of road maintenance and mobilization to protect safe road conditions in the winter. That cost a lot more money, in the tens and tens of millions of dollars it added to the contracts that required them to staff up and acquire more equipment. But that has paid off significantly. So we do, of course, track things like accident statistics, and we have seen improvements related to the enhanced road maintenance contracts that our government tendered and that were successfully competed for, that is benefiting everybody in the province.
Tyler, do you have a follow-up?
Yeah, thanks. So rebuilding the highways is obviously a huge job, but are there any new plans for work on highway areas that maybe weren't damaged last year, but may be particularly or newly vulnerable in the future, given the last year and some of the weather we've seen and the fires we've seen?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're assessing vulnerability in every part of the province. We had some atmospheric river activity, some of which wasn't as severe as anticipated, but affecting the largely unimpacted northern region. And then, of course, we had some weather events in the northwest of the province. So we're looking at at that infrastructure. We have made some good steps in recent years in terms of the investments we're making for climate adaptation, like proactive investments to prevent significant washouts and damage to infrastructure. We're going to continue to do that. It's very helpful now to be working side by side with the federal government as well. And there is some damage that was sustained in the storm events that we haven't talked a lot about in today's briefing because it was repaired so quickly and it's been so highly functional. But Highway 1, the Malahat here on Vancouver Island, sustained significant damage in November. I drove it on Saturday and was very impressed with how functional it is, how quickly those repairs happen. But of course, there'll be work in upcoming construction seasons to see what additional steps we might take to protect our drainage systems, to protect our highway networks.
Thank you very much. That concludes today's event.